friends. Um, I feel like I first need to say that I had a major contact malfunction this morning, which is why my eyes look so crazy. Accidentally used really old contact solution, and it was super painful, and so I kind of look like I've been crying, which I haven't, but my eyes really hurt uh, really bad. So, um, I am home in Minnesota right now, visiting my family. And yeah, we are like, let's see here. We are 93% to our goal, which is like super, super, super exciting. I'm also like having a major breakout, so I have like all this like crap on my face. I'm a mess, basically, but I'm excited to be here and chatting with you friends. How's everybody doing? Is everybody on holiday break? Oh, my eyes look bad. Well, thank you. That's very generous. I'm just mostly a mess. But I'm happy to be home. I got like 12 hours of sleep last night, which was pretty glorious. Um, well, that's because I've covered them up with all this gunk. But my eyes look rough. I think I still have a contact like lodged in the back of this eye. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, ay, ay. But, that's how it goes. Well, I just got home yesterday to visit my family. Um, and my mom and I had like a little girls' day. We got our nails did, and we went and saw a movie together. And I hung out with my stepdad, and have just been kind of taking it easy. Which has been really nice. And my friends from college get into town later today, and we have this tradition every year since we've graduated college. We've split a hotel room and like stayed at a hotel together to like revisit our college days when we all lived together, and it's like the best part of the entire year. It's so much fun. So I'm super excited to see them later tonight. We're gonna just, you know, have a good old time. Um, yeah, so that'll be super great. Um, I hope everyone's having a wonderful start to the holiday season. Um, we've been, oh, thank you. We've been having a pretty good couple of days with the crowdfunding. Um, let's see, let's check our current, oh, 32,735. So we are 94% to our goals. So we are like just over $2,000 away, which is super duper exciting. We've got a fun video to share when we hit 35. But the thing I'm most excited about is that we have all of these stretch goals. So if we hit 35 before the campaign ends, we're gonna like offer you more content. If we can hit 40,000, we're going to offer you, it'll be revealed once we hit our goal what the exact things are, but for each tier that we hit that's higher than 35, we're going to release more and different types of content. So we're like super 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 duper excited, and we hope we can raise a little more money so we can bring more stuff your way. There are 16 days left. The fitty, remind me what your name is. You told me last time, and I forgot. What's a guilty pleasure? What's a guilty pleasure of mine? This right here. What else is a guilty pleasure? Riverdale. I love Riverdale. It's a real guilty pleasure. I love those CW shows that are like really soapy and dramatic. Linda. That's right, Linda. I'm gonna remember that. That is a big guilty pleasure for me. Um, I don't know. I really like soapy shows like that. Um, yes. So yeah, so we're getting really excited. I need to watch that show. I've heard of it. Um, we're just getting really excited as we're moving toward the end of the campaign here. We'll start pre production probably in early February. We really want to start shooting in March. Oh, congratulations, Lisa. That's really exciting. Um, um, oh, that's funny, Linda. Um, so yeah, we're getting really excited to like move into the next stage, which is actually making the show. And so we're definitely going to be looking for people in the LA area who are interested in coming and being PAs and helping us out with things. We're going to be on the hunt for locations, especially, you know, places that we can use as the clinic. Um, so we're going to be sort of on the hunt soon, which we're getting really excited about. Um, we're writing the show right now, and it's been really exciting. Linnea, are you going to release all of the episodes at once or one at a time? We don't know yet. We don't know yet. We haven't decided. Maybe we'll do a vote. There's like pros and cons to both. Like the show is called Binge, so it'd be really nice to be able to like binge the full season. But then like there's always like a little bit of sadness once you just like sat down and watched an entire show in one sitting. You're like, oh, I kind of wish I had stretched that out. So I don't know. Maybe we'll release. I don't know. I don't know what we'll do yet. I don't know. I would love you guys' input. Tips for breaking a binge pattern. I know that for me, what was really feeding the binging pattern was how much I was trying to restrict in between binges. I found that once I was able to follow a meal plan really consistently, along with like having an emotional support system of like a therapist and a dietitian, that the impulses to binge went away because my body was getting what it needed and it no longer felt like it needed to desperately hold on to food that it might not get. There are oftentimes like a lot of emotional components happening as well. So finding other behaviors that you can do to replace or supplement the binging behaviors, maybe maybe it's not that the goal is to get the binging to totally stop at first. Maybe it's to decrease the amount of time spent doing it, or decrease the guilt or the shame that you feel after it. There are a lot of different ways to target all the different angles, because it is about the food, but it's not about the food. And if you can find ways to continue to be kind to yourself, I think it can be a really helpful first step. Let's see, I think I missed. Linda, you'll be able to link articles after the live session is closed. So you'll be able to link them in the comments afterwards. Where do I stand on people blowing their noses in public? That's a great question, and one I think about a lot. Um, I say, do it so you don't get the snot drip. But I would say, maybe kind of turn your back from the crowd and do it, just like very, concise, just be be mindful about it. If you gotta really, if you know that your nose blowing is loud and kind of violent, I would try and like kind of move away from the crowd, you know? Just be mindful when you're blowing your nose this holiday season, is what I would say. Um, oh, got it. Um, oh no, a nosebleed. Yeah, it's like the dry time of year. I used to get those a lot because the air is really dry. No fun. No fun at all. Man, my eye is still super red from this contact malfunction. It's like puffy. Anyway, um, so yeah, the holidays can be a really kind of tough time. Um, But I'm excited about them. What are all of your guys' plans for the holiday season? Let's see. Aroma diffuser. Oh, that sounds cool. To combat the dry air. I'm into that. I like that. Um, yes, run some low key errands. Yeah, I need to do some errand running, but it's so cold in Minnesota. I don't want to leave my house ever. Ever. I just kind of want to stay under the covers, you know? Um, let's see. I'm really scared for Christmas. Yeah, is that scared because of like the food situation? Does your family do like a big food event? I totally understand that fear and had it for a really long time. And I found that what was most helpful for me was to really, 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 really plan ahead and come up with a plan on how to manage and deal with triggers, and then just like be gentle with yourself if things get tough. Oh, 17 people, Linnea. That is a lot of people. Are they all staying at your house? That's crazy. Um, oof. Um, how do I reach out for help if I'm afraid of being told that I'm not sick enough? Amelia, that's a great question. I think it kind of depends on who you're reaching out to. If it's someone like a friend or a family member, they're probably not very educated on eating disorders. And it might be really helpful to have some information to give them when you sit down and sort of explain what you're going through. A book I always recommend is The Eight Keys of Eating Disorder Recovery by Carolyn Costin. I'd recommend printing out some literature and, coming with some resources for your friends and family to read and say, I know that this might be kind of shocking, might be kind of scary, but sometimes emotional reactions that people have to news like this come out of a place of uneducation, and not knowing how to help, not understanding what it is that you might be going through. So being able to provide them with some education on it could be really useful. But if you're reaching out to a guidance counselor or a therapist, I think you should feel confident that they'll hopefully know that most people don't wear their eating disorders, and that physical shape is a terrible indicator of health. And that's a very archaic way of looking at these illnesses, and actually like a very deadly way of looking at them. Um, oh, congrats, Isabella, on finishing your finals. I'm so glad. Are you finally on holiday break then? Getting to relax? This is a great time of year for self-care and getting a lot of extra sleep and just, letting yourself sort of recharge for January. One thing that I think is like super dangerous that's coming up soon is this idea of like new year, new you. I kind of hate that. It's like you're the same you. And it can put a lot of pressure on people to do like crazy things with their eating or their exercise. Um, so that's something to be mindful of that's like coming right around the corner. Um, have you dealt with obsessively working out? Um, yes, Nicola. Yes, I did go through a small bout of obsessive exercise. I thankfully don't like exercise that much, so it didn't last that long, but it lasted a couple months, and I really understand what you mean by it taking a toll. Um, I wonder if you can start setting some limits for yourself, and I'd recommend asking a nutritionist or a therapist what seems reasonable for you, because every body and every lifestyle, exercise can look different. But I would say that a nice rule of thumb is like, I don't want to give numbers because I'm not an expert. If you feel like it's infringing on your social life, you're probably right that you're doing too much of it. If it feels like an emotional burden or something that causes you anxiety or distress when you don't do it, you're probably right that it's become an unhealthy thing. And I would really encourage you to take a look at your habits and try to find a way to be less black and white with your thinking about exercise. Maybe even replace, let's say you're a gym person and this is gym activity. Maybe one of the days that you would go to the gym, you can replace it with a walk with a friend so that you can still be moving around, but you can have that social interaction that you're missing. For me, when I got really obsessed with exercise, I was really regimented and I sort of I lost track of what the point of exercise is actually, and that's to be in your body, get your heart rate up, feel those endorphins, have fun, remind yourself like of what a cool vessel your body is. And a lot of times gym workouts are so result oriented that it can become really toxic and really dangerous really fast. And getting back to the more natural forms of exercise like hiking and bowling and dancing, those sort of non-result oriented exercises, if you can replace some of what you're doing with that, I think it could be a good start for you. um, I'm an editing account and I was working on the Binge edit. Are there going to be more episodes? Yes, there are going to be more episodes. We are currently crowdfunding to make a full first season, and you can find the link to that in basically everywhere at bingetheseries.com. You can just go to indiegogo.com and type binge. Um, and we're really close to our goal. We're just over $2,000 away, and if we can hit our goal, then we're going to be shooting a full first season that we'll be releasing hopefully by the end of 2018, and we're really really excited. Um, how did I begin my recovery? It's a great question. I sort of wanted recovery for years before I was actually able to get it, and I saw a therapist throughout my eating disorder, lots of therapists, and I did a treatment program in the Twin Cities that was great, but didn't quite work for me. So I sort of like got my recovery in chunks, and like I would do things and it would get better for a little bit, or I would sort of go into remission. I did this program called the Emily program that's fantastic in the Twin Cities, and it helped a lot at first, but I wasn't really willing to let it go. My friend Meg was telling me about this idea that she's like, for a while in my recovery, I was sort of functioning like a dry drunk, where I wasn't doing the habits, but my brain was still very much eating disordered. So it makes relapse really easy. My real recovery started when I did a program in California, and the PHP, a partial hospitalization program, where I really just put a pause on my life and had an entire team, dietitians, therapists, family therapists. I had my meal plan very structured, my days very structured, and I had a lot of accountability. And I really needed that. I really needed that to reset my brain and get healthy again. Um, do you have to have depression to have an eating disorder? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. That seems really, uh, that seems like eating disorders are so varied, and I don't think you have to have depression. I'm not an expert. I know that I struggle more with anxiety than I do depression, but I have had bouts of depression in my life. I know that when you're malnourished, and you can be malnourished at many different sizes, you can't always see malnourishment, but when you are malnourished, your brain doesn't get all of the chemicals it needs to work in a nice way. So malnourishment can cause depression. It's sort of that thing like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's all kind of a blend. I feel like the eating disorder is just a manifestation of all of these different things that are happening, and it causes things and is caused by things, and it kind of is this cycle where it's hard to tell what came first, really. um let's see. No worries, Nicola. Jared, I totally understand what you mean by I live in and crave extremes. I myself am that way as well. I'm very much, have sort of impulse control issues that I've worked really hard to to control. I am definitely like a thrill seeker, and have a tendency to want to, like, press self destruct on everything happening in my life. And do I think it's possible to find healthy extremes? I do. I do. I'm not always successful at doing so, but I've created a much healthier life for myself post treatment, thanks to a lot of help. Um, I now try to find my thrills in the creative work that I do, uh, in having friends over in social activities. I try to really find the excitement and the stimulation in ways that are healthy. For me, I'm an actor, so I try to do, a stage play once a year that really gets the adrenaline pumping, and like scratches a specific itch for me. There are a lot of safe ways and healthy ways that you can feed those parts of yourself that are really fun and exciting. I know things like escape rooms can be a really fun way to, like, do something sort of crazy and out of the norm that's also like very fun and healthy, or going to like an amusement park, going on an actual roller coaster. For me, like, starting a new creative project is a really nice way for me to still feel those extremes in a healthy way. So it is possible. It does take time and focus to kind of recalibrate, and to redefine what is happiness for you. Do I have any advice on hospitalization for anorexia? I have never been hospitalized. I was anorexic for a while. Um, but my advice, I think, for anyone who is, in a place where they have access to care and treatment and experts, would be to, if you can, give yourself permission to let go uh, of control for a little bit, and let the people who do kind of know best guide you for a little while. Something my therapist at the Emily program said to me that has really stuck with me is, you already know how to be anorexic. You know how to do it, right? You know how. You can always go back to that. You're your own person. No one can actually make you do anything. But if you can give yourself permission for a couple of months just to let go and to follow the advice of these professionals, see what happens, test the hypothesis, uh, you can always go back to anorexia. I hope you won't. And I think once you start to taste recovery, you won't. But that's always going to be there. Know that you have that, you know how to do it. But what you don't know how to do right now is to let go of that control, and to take the advice of those who are experts and know a little bit better. So I would just really recommend listening for a little while, and giving over that control. I know it's really, really hard. Um, has your knowledge and experience with eating disorders ever allowed you to see a friend has a problem? Um, yeah, yeah. Um, there's this thing, though, I think that a lot of people with eating disorders, or who are seeking recovery, where that you can start to see eating disorders everywhere, and I think we have to be careful not to diagnose people when we're not experts. Um, but I think that what I try to do now is just speak from my experience and allow myself to listen if someone wants to talk. If I start to hear things, or I start to worry about something, maybe in a safe place that's not, that's not going to seem embarrassing or disarming for the friend to be like, hey, I'm hearing this kind of language, and I just want to let you know that when I thought this way or when I spoke this way, it was because I was in pain. If you're in pain, I'm here for you, and I would love to listen. Focusing on the behaviors, focusing on, well, you go to the bathroom every time after you eat, or you ate, uh, way more than I think is natural for a person to eat, or I haven't seen you eat in a month. Like, focusing on the behaviors can be incredibly alienating and embarrassing and humiliating. And the last thing you want to do is make someone you care about feel that way. But focusing on who they are as a human being, maybe you notice that they're not coming to as many social events, or they seem sad, or their, lust for life has kind of gone away. And focusing on the human experience, like, hey, like, I'm worried that you might be in pain. I want to let you know that I care about you, and if you need anything, I'm here for you. What can I do to support you? Instead of just assuming that something is going on. I think that can be a much healthier way to go about it. Binge made me see my history with eating disorder habits I never recognized in myself. Oh, that makes me really happy to hear. Do you have any advice on keeping yourself in check when it comes to overdoing exercise? Yeah, that can be really difficult. I know that I've had friends, if you go to a gym, uh, I mean, this is a little awkward and you'd have to really trust the person. But I know that at my college, there were some people in treatment who set up a system with the receptionist at the gym that they were only allowed to check in, a certain amount of days a week, depending on what was approved by their therapist. Having some actual checks and balances in place can be really useful. Maybe you can, start a system where you only exercise with a buddy, and your buddy knows how much you guys are supposed to be engaging in those behaviors. Um, Maybe when you have the impulse to exercise and it's coming from a eating disordered place, maybe there you can make a list of other activities that you can do. I used to have this jar where I'd write a bunch of things down that I like to do, like color, get a manicure, get a massage, which can be expensive, stretch, watch, this movie that I love, take a shower, you know, um, I don't know, smell a candle. Um, and when I was feeling the impulse to engage in my eating disorder, I would pick one of the things of um, out of my little bucket, and I would do the thing that was on the card. And maybe I still engaged in the behavior after, but at least I was starting to establish some things that I would do before engaging in the behavior. Let me see. That's great advice, Mimi. That's great advice. I'm a runner. This past month, my AD has been the absolute worst. I'm scared I'll no longer be able to do the things I love. I feel like giving up, but trying now. I'm glad to hear that you're trying, and I'm so sorry to hear that you're in pain right now. And it sounds like your job also can make it very difficult for your eating disorder, and trigger some dangerous behaviors and thoughts for you. I'm so sorry that you're suffering, and I'm really, really sorry. And um, I hope that you'll see that you're worth support, and you're worth, um, your future is worth being supported, and that you don't have to go through this alone, and that there are tools and resources that you can use to find a path to health and to happiness. Um, and I hope that you'll uh, take some of those steps and build your life up with resources, um, to help you live a more fulfilling life. I'm really sorry that you're struggling. Um, any advice to avoid binging? Yeah, I talked about this a little bit at the top, but eating regularly is, I think, the best advice, and was the best for me to avoid binging. Restricting in any manner, restricting numbers, restricting meals, restricting food groups, for me always led to a binge, always. Um, I needed to work with a dietitian in order to do that. I had sort of been in my eating disorder for so long that I didn't really know how to eat anymore, so I wasn't really able to do it alone. Um, but once I had a team that set me up with a meal plan and I sort of gave myself over to that meal plan, I slowly but surely found the impulse to binge went away. It actually went away faster than I thought that it would. Um, but of course, binging has to do with more than just nutrition, right? There's an emotional component. So, finding ways to nurture yourself and make yourself feel safe and full and protected um, is really important as well. I mean, this might sound silly, but I'd recommend buying a weighted blanket. It feels like a hug uh, and can help you feel safe and secure when you're working on not engaging in behaviors. I'd remind yourself that, like, this moment will pass, and that discomfort can't kill you. Um, I develop a phone tree of people in your life that you can call and be with when you're having these impulses. I just really recommend, if you don't have a therapist, to find one who you can work with on these things, because it's really difficult and you deserve support. Let me see. I love all the messages you guys are sending each other. In case you're just tuning in, I just want to let you know. I'm like really self-conscious about this. I had a contact malfunction this morning, so my eyes are all hurting, and then I'm having some breakouts, so I've got like stuff in my face. Anyway, see, I get self-conscious too. Let's see. Aw, I love you too, Anna, and I'm so sorry that you're in this kind of pain, and I'm so sorry that it's something that intersects with your job and probably your identity a little bit as a runner and your athleticism. That's got to be. I'm not an athlete by any means, and that's got to be so difficult. Um, it's got to be so difficult, but I do think you'll be able to find. Actually, the nutritionist that I worked with was a big athlete, and she suffered, with eating disorders for years and years and years before she found recovery and then became a nutritionist. And I know that there are nutritionists that work with athletes in finding a healthy way to be, to both continue athleticism and have the freedom of mind and habit. And so I really encourage you to find someone who understands what it is that you're struggling with specifically. Um, yes, yes. Um, Pearl, you bring up a great point. Pearl says, I'm in recovery from anorexia and I find it's fairly easy to make the healthy choice once or twice in a row, but the idea of maintaining that indefinitely is terrifying. You bring up a really good point. And this is where, for me, the recovery becomes a practice. It becomes a muscle that you build. And I think you're totally right that it's easy to do it in short little segments at first. And that doing it long term requires you build emotional endurance. Um, and I think, at least I experienced a little bit of what you're talking about right now. It's like, oh, it's hard. Oh, it's hard. Oh my God, I can't do this forever. Oh my God, it's so hard. There's maybe a little boop, boop, maybe some little slippy, 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 and you get back on track. But throughout this time, you're building those muscles literally in your brains. You're building the synaptic patterns. You're building the emotional resources. And the longer you do it and the harder you fight, you're going to have to muscle, 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 muscle. And at some point, your muscles will be built, right? Your muscles will be built and it'll get easier. And it'll get easier. You won't even realize it's getting easier at first. And all of a sudden, you'll look around and say, wait a second, I've had 7 great days in a row that I didn't have to white knuckle through. How is that possible? It's possible because of all of the work and the practice and the diligence and the deep emotional work that you put through in those hardest moments is going to equip you for smoother sailing a month from now. I promise you, it will not be white knuckling forever. I have been intuitively eating for, let's see, I've been out of treatment now for what? Like, math. 4.5 years I've been out of treatment. I've been intuitively eating for probably four of those 4.5 years. Um, and all of the hard work I put in treatment is there to support me, but I don't have to think about it anymore. Sometimes I do. If my life is chaos, my brain still likes to bring up eating disorder thoughts first to deal with situations, but then that's when I pull out my tool belt. But most of the time, it's just something that naturally happens. You lived once without an eating disorder, and you can live again that way. It just feels completely foreign right now. Think of the way, so you lived once without an eating disorder, right? And now you live with an eating disorder. Something happened with your brain to morph it into what it is now. The exact opposite thing can happen because our brains are so malleable, and so elastic that we can shift our thinking a lot easier. It's a lot easier. It happens a lot quicker than we feel like it does if we have the right support network. Um, I struggle with winter blues, yes, and sometimes it drives binge because I'm looking for that stimulation and friend loneliness. Oh, I know, yeah. Any advice? This is a great question, Linda. Yeah, that thrill seeking. You're bored. God, what do I do when I'm bored? I mean, sometimes it just comes down to being like, you know what, I'm just going to sit through this. And I know that tomorrow I'm not going to feel like this. And it really sucks right now. But what's going to suck worse is binging and then dealing with the emotional fallout of that. So sometimes it's just being like, there's worse suffering than boredom, even though in the moment it feels really hard. Um, Arts and crafts are really helpful because they require you to first of all, they can be very meditative, like coloring. I really love coloring. Coloring or knitting, or like calligraphy, something that takes a lot of focus, and or going to like one of those like paint a pot places. I love paint a pot places, where you end up creating something, can be a great way to channel those blues and focus them. Um, but the blues, that's part of being human, and that stuff's gonna keep cropping back up. I mean, that's just part of living as a human being sometimes. I think reminding yourself that it's not forever and that it'll go away. The feelings will ebb and flow, you know? Mimi says, I want to be independent from calories and weight. Yeah, it's thinking about those numbers all the time is the worst. The more you practice, the easier it will be to let that stuff go. And it does get let go because the numbers don't matter, really, at the end of the day. I'm trying so hard to block out the constant voice in my head. It's driving me insane. Do you have any advice? Um, Yeah. So that voice, that's like your eating disorder self, right? But you also have a healthy self, because the virus can't live without the host. That's something we talked about the last live feed. Um, so I would say start. try start talking back to that voice. um Pretend it's like an ugly gremlin that's sitting at this, the foot of your bed, and try talking back to it, even out loud. Like, say, put it in its place. Say, like, get out of town. Like, if it's coming at you with some crazy BS, like crazy baloney about the value that weight and shape plays, hit it back with, my value is independent from my shape. And practice really talking back to it, because we can use our healthy self to heal our eating disorder self. And thinking about treating yourself the way you would treat a young child can be really useful as well, because it can be really hard to be nice to ourselves. But generally, it's pretty easy to be nice to a little cute, oh, excuse me, a little cute little kid, or a puppy. you know um, Treating yourself the way you would treat yourself as a child, or the way you would treat a young child, can be really helpful as well. um, let's see here. I love this. I hope you all can reach out to each other for support after the live feed ends, because this is making me really happy to see the communication that's happening. Um, how do you start therapy? I've been miserable for years. I'm totally isolated and mostly scared. How do I do it? Start by, I mean, this sounds really basic, by Googling therapists in your area. And I would just make a couple appointments, depending on what your insurance situation is like and your financial situation is like. I would maybe recommend making a couple of appointments with a couple different therapists. Write some things out ahead of time that you want to discuss, and just sort of be in that space. Let getting into the room be the victory, and sort of see how you jive. I'd say, like, lower your expectations for the first therapy session. Just let it be a meeting of two individuals to see if you feel safe in that space. And I always recommend planning something fun for after your first therapy session. You know, getting your nails done, going bowling, going to see a movie, listening to music with a friend, playing music, something that you like to do after therapy as a reward. Um, I think it is really important, so that you can, honor the victory. Um, you are so tired, Angela. I'm not that tired. My eyes look like this because I had a contact malfunction. Look at them. They're like bloodshot. I think what happened is that I used really old contact solution that was like not the right balance of chemicals, and I put it in, my eyes were like, oh, not fun. Not fun at all. So now I look like I've been crying when I haven't. Oh well. Um, yes, different therapists have different approaches and personalities. Find the relationship that feels right. You are worth it. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's hard to do. It's hard to do. I've gotten pretty lucky. Um, I also, it's funny, a lot of my friends all go to the same therapist. Um, if you have a therapist you like, tell a friend about them. They can be hard to come by. Like, spread the wealth of the therapists. Ask your friends who might be in therapy who they like. You know? Yes. Good point, Pearl. You have options. Like, you deserve to find the person that clicks with you. Yes, the right therapist can make all of the difference. Um, it should really feel safe, and finding someone who does have like a little bit of a background with eating disorders is also super important, um, so that they understand understand what you're going through, and don't make some of the ridiculous misconceptions that lack of education can result in sometimes. um, so we've got about 15 minutes left here. um, my current therapist is my favorite. Yay. Want to tell you something which will make you laugh. I will go to brunch with friends tomorrow and have been counting calories. I will eat for 4 days now. It's driving me crazy. I know what it's like to be stuck in that cycle of thinking. It's really debilitating. It's really hard. It's really lonely. It's really all consuming. Um, you deserve support when going through it. Um, do you have a therapist or a dietitian? Sometimes that calorie counting behavior can be fueled by malnutrition. Um, Maybe you're not getting everything that you need, but it's also habit. And I don't mean to make that sound frivolous, right? Like, habits are really powerful, and you're in this cycle, this brain cycle, where this one pattern, count, is being reinforced over and over again. And every time it's thought, it gets stronger, and it takes time, and it takes muscle, and it takes energy to bend that thought, to let that thought go. For me, and I know this can be a little controversial, but for me, I do take medication, and it helps me immensely with my obsessive thinking, calorie counting, and the like. It's been an instrumental part of my recovery. Um, that can be a really useful option for you, just to help take the edge off. For me, what medication feels like is there's a switch in my brain, right? Um, when I'm not taking the medication, it's, the switch to turn off the thoughts. I can't push it, I can't push it. When I'm on the medication, I can look at it and say, oh, I guess I can turn those thoughts off. It makes pushing that button a little bit easier. Um, how do you not count calories when you know how many calories are in everything? I think I think it becomes sort of a little bit of a mindfulness practice when you feel yourself going there. It's really, it's different for every brain. But for me, I just say nope, 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 let it go. Shake, sometimes I physically shake my head. Nope, mm-mm. And try and focus on something that will ground me in the present, because thinking about calories, counting calories, that's taking you out of the moment. That's something you're doing alone in your brain, feeling, okay, what do I smell? uh can I relax the muscles in my shoulders? I'm going to take a moment to feel my butt on the seat. um I'm going to feel my feet on the floor. I'm going to count to 5 and listen to what the person next to me is saying instead of thinking about calories in my head. I'm going to focus on being present, doing things to ground yourself in the moment. I'm going to feel the this is a blanket, but feel the napkin on my lap. What does the fabric feel like? It's kind of starchy, did they wash it today? Doing things to take you out of your brain and into your physical environment can be really useful. Having things like a rock in your pocket that you can kind of feel and, squeeze when you're having those thoughts, so that you can focus on the sensation that's happening in your hand and get out of the place in your brain. And it's a lot of practice and diligence. Um, but the more you fight the urge to think those thoughts, the less power that they'll have. Yeah, Mimi, I really feel for you living in a country where there is a real severe lack of information and knowledge on eating disorders. I wonder if there might be a way for you to find a therapist in a country that has uh, more information, and do like Skype sessions. I know a friend of mine has a Skype therapist, um, because I think it's really important for you to work with a team that understands these illnesses. So I'd, maybe do some research and see if you can find someone who has a real understanding, that might not be in your home country, that might, be over the internet. I keep recommending the 8 Keys of Eating Disorder Recovery by Carolyn Costin. Um, Linda, but when am I live until? I'm gonna get off in about 10 minutes here. Gonna go. I gotta finish my holiday shopping. Yeah, Mimi, search with your parents. You deserve a team that really understands you. Um, I wish I had resources for that. We did start a resource document that I can share again, but I don't know much about Tunisia. Um, but man, we need more education around the world about this. Um, Linda, I love holiday shopping, except it is so cold in Minnesota right now that I'm dreading going shopping because it means I have to get out of the car. It's cold. But I'll do it anyway. I'll rally. I will rally. I will share one little thing. So tonight I'm going to see my best friends from college, and we've had this tradition every single Christmas since we graduated. We have all shared a hotel for 2 nights, and spent time together like we did in college. And the first, many years when I was really in my eating disorder, I really struggled during the times we were together. I was like, I know I'm not being present. I'm not enjoying my friends. I just want to be present, but food and binging and eating disorder. And I wasn't able to be present and actually enjoy my time with my very best friends in the world. And these last couple of years have been so much better. I've been able to be so much more present with them, um, and focus on just enjoying their company and having fun with these wonderful women instead of worrying about where we're going to go to dinner and how I'm going to manage. Um, there's just a way out, I promise. Um, how do I remain optimistic, Amelia? I think what you're describing of, having good days and bad days is super normal. And I would start by not getting down on yourself for not being able to stay optimistic all the time. No one, no one can. Um, and the days that you're doing well, the days that you have slip ups, it doesn't negate the hard work that you're doing. And I would just say, like, sort of monitor the ratio of good days to bad days, right? Like, and just push to have a couple more good days than bad days right now, if you can. If you can. Um, because the more you practice optimism, I suppose, and the more that you um, follow your meal plan and are able to avoid engaging in activities, the stronger you're going to get and the easier it's going to get. Um, and having sort of a plan of action for when things get hard can be really important to getting back on track the next day or the next hour or the next meal. Um, a support system, a journal, music, a certain piece of music that puts you in a good mood that you can associate with, you know, with positivity and fighting for yourself. Maybe even a vision, you can maybe even make a vision board of images that are not thinspo, no, that are things you love, landscapes you want to visit. And for me, like dogs, movies that you love, reasons for living, and really focus on the why instead of the what. Because it's about life and living life and having a whole life, right? Um, it's amazing. Um, well, I think it's time for me to go. But thank you all for being here and for chatting and for supporting each other. I hope that you'll all, share your contact information with each other if you're comfortable after this live feed ends. And, we still have 16 days left in our crowdfunding campaign when we are so close to making it. So I just really appreciate your support. And I think you're all the bee's knees and you're going to get through this. Love you guys.